Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, Counter Spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve.
Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into a time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
One of the series you helped us get a hold of, Staats Cotsworth as Casey Crime Photographer. This crime drama from March 18th, 1948, 75 years ago today, Murder in Black and White. And we thank you for tuning in on this Saturday. This is the 18th day of March, and this happens to be the 77th day of the year, with 288 days remaining till we get to 2024. Jacques de Molay, the 23rd and last Grand Master of the Knights Templar, burned at the stake on this date in 1314. 1673, John Berkeley, the first Baron Berkeley of Stratton, sold his part in New Jersey to some friends with a capital F, the Quakers. 1766, the British Parliament repealed the Stamp Act, which was very unpopular in the British colonies. American Express, founded on this date in 1850 by Henry Wells and William Fargo. I have to wonder if those two men saw what some of their stuff became today. They would just be spinning in their graves. 1865, the Congress of the Confederate States of America adjourned for the last time. 1874, Hawaii signed a treaty with the U.S. granting exclusive trading rights. 1893, former Governor General Lord Stanley pledged to donate a Silver Challenge Cup, later named after him, as an award for the best ice hockey team in Canada. Originally presented to amateur champions, the Stanley Cup has been awarded to the top pro team since 1910, and since 1926, only to National Hockey League teams. 1909, Einar Dessau used a shortwave radio transmitter, becoming the first radio broadcaster. In 1922 in India, Mohandas Gandhi, sentenced to 6 years in prison for civil disobedience, he would serve only 2 years. 1925, the tri-state tornado hit the Midwestern states of Missouri, Illinois, Indiana. 695 people killed. 1938, Mexico nationalized all foreign-owned oil properties within its borders. In 1940, Adolf Hitler and Benito Mussolini met at Brenner Pass in the Alps and agreed to form an alliance against France and the United Kingdom. 1944, the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in Italy killed 26 and caused thousands to flee their homes. 1953, an earthquake hits western Turkey. 250 were killed. 1959, President Eisenhower signed a bill into law allowing for Hawaii statehood, which would become official on August 21st. He's an icon now, but he was freshly introduced on this date in 1961. The Pillsbury Doughboy.
Don't forget home baked at your house. Bake Pillsbury.
The Doughboy, properly named Poppin' Fresh, originally a product of stop-action clay animation, but he's now created via CGI. Computers taking over everything. First astronaut to walk in space did so on this date in 1965, as we hear from Radio Moscow.
This is Radio Moscow. Here is the latest news about the Soviet spaceflight now in progress. At 11:30 this morning, Moscow time, one of the Soviet spacemen left the spaceship in outer space.
Cosmonaut Alexei Leonov leaving his spacecraft, the Voskhod 2, for 12 minutes. He became the first person to walk in space. Congress repealed the requirements for gold reserve to back U.S. currency on this date in 1968. 1974, most OPEC nations ended a 5-month oil embargo against the U.S., Europe, and Japan. In the largest art theft in history of the U.S. on this date in 1990, 12 paintings, collectively worth around $300 million, stolen from the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston. In 2002, more than 89 persons in over 20 states charged in the first phase of a nationwide crackdown on the proliferation of child pornography via the Internet.
Our investigation uncovered an estimated 7,000 members, including some 2,400 outside our borders, using email and the Candyman website to post, download, and share pornographic images of children.
Attorney General John Ashcroft said individuals identified as subjects in Operation Candyman included Little League coaches, a teacher's aide, a guidance counselor, school bus driver, foster care parent, and professionals in the medical, educational, military, and law enforcement fields. In 2003, the U.S. entered the war in Iraq, about $1 billion taken from Iraq's central bank by Saddam Hussein and his family, just hours before the U.S. began bombing Iraq, the biggest bank robbery in history. 1 year later, in 2004, President Bush would thank the troops.
In 1 year's time, Saddam Hussein has gone from a palace to a bunker to a spider hole to jail.
President George W. Bush addressing the troops in Fort Campbell, Kentucky, March 18, 2004. In 2003, FBI agents raided the corporate headquarters of Health South Corporation in Birmingham, Alabama, on suspicion of massive corporate fraud led by the company's top executives. 2008, Barack Obama confronted America's racial divide with a speech in Philadelphia. It was prompted by incendiary racial remarks made by the soon-to-be president's African-American pastor, the Reverend Jeremiah Wright. Among those passing away on this date in history, opera singer Lawrence Melchior, Bill Butterfield, a fine jazz trumpeter, also John Phillips of the Mamas and the Papas, British computer pioneer Adam Osborne, came up with the cheapest computer you ever saw. And it led to a lot of big companies making less expensive computers than they had in the past. Journalist Bill Butel, actress Natasha Richardson, also Fess Parker, Daniel Boone was a man, Chuck Berry, what a wonderful performer, and Apollo 15 command module pilot Alfred Worden. This is the birth date of the daughter of Henry VII of England, Queen Consort to Louis XII of France, Mary Tudor. Also, Vice President 7, John C. Calhoun, President Grover Cleveland, the Russian composer Nikolai Rimsky-Korsakov, British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain, actor Edward Everett Horton, winemaker Ernest Gallo, what am I saying here? Singer-songwriter Smiley Burnett, motorsports entrepreneur Andy Granatelli, Peter Graves, you remember him from Mission Impossible, writer-actor George Plimpton, musician Charlie Pride, Wilson Pickett, still waiting in the midnight hour, Knots Landing's Kevin Dobson, and passing away just last year from Flashdance, Irene Cara. TV host Mike Rowe is 61. The beautiful Vanessa L. Williams, 60 years old. What happened to her was a tragedy, I have to tell you. I mean, it was not a tragedy, but it was something that really shouldn't happen to anybody. Queen Latifah, 53. Comedian Dane Cook, 51. From The Voice, singer-songwriter, guitarist Adam Levine, 44. Ethan Carter III, pro wrestler, is 40. Actress, daughter of Phil Collins, Lily Collins, 34. From Swing Vote and Spy Next Door, Madeline Carroll is 27. And from Big Time Rush and Red Band Society, Ciara Bravo is 26. Those just a few of the people who celebrate the 18th day of March as their birthday. And if this happens to be your birthday...
Hi, we're the Four Freshmen, and we just want to say... Happy birthday to you!
And from 75 years ago, March 18th, 1945, Casey, crime photographer. That's coming up next on this Saturday Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite station. Thanks for tuning in to Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Before we get to Casey, I want to give a shout out to my good friends at WOND in Atlantic City. A friend of mine now is working Sunday afternoons there, Frank Morano, The Other Side of Midnight, along with Judge Janine and Larry Kudlow. They are a part of the lineup, and I hope you will give them a listen. And my friend Frank Morano, you're following me. You're stalking Wyatt Cox, and you shouldn't be doing that. Oh, we'll see. Anyway, now, On this Saturday edition of Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, we go back 75 years, March 18th, 1948, a show that you helped us acquire through your Buy Me a Coffee funding, Classic Casey Crime Photographer, starring Staats Cotsworth. And if that you don't think that's a hard name, it's hard, almost as hard to spell. Staats is spelled S-T-A-A-T-S, Cotsworth C-O-T-S-W-R-R-T-H. So imagine having to write it, much less spell it, and say it. Casey Crime Photographer, 75 years ago today, March 18th, 1948.
The Anchor Hocking Glass Corporation brings you Crime Photographer.
Casey, I found this sheet of paper with typewriting all over it.
What does it say?
Well, it's funny, just the same thing over and over. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
Well?
Is that a code of some kind?
No, that's what beginners write for practice.
Well, why don't they write something that makes sense?
Like what?
Ha! Like Anchor Hocking, the most famous name in glass. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Tony Marvin. Every week at this time, the Anchor Hocking Glass Corporation of Lancaster, Ohio, and its more than 10,000 employees bring you another adventure of Casey, crime photographer, ace cameraman who covers the crime news of a great city. Our adventure for tonight, murder in black and white. Morning, a wooded glen in a vast city park. And on the still frost-hardened ground, there lies a dead man. Detectives move methodically about the body. Beside it kneels a police surgeon. Watching him is Captain Logan of the Homicide Bureau, Ann Williams, reporter, and the man with the press camera is Casey.
Aren't you almost finished, Casey?
Yeah, Annie. Thanks for letting me take these shots of the deceased, Logan. I'll do you a favor someday.
You can do me a favor right now, Casey. You too, Miss Williams. Go back to your paper and let us cops get our work done. Hey, Doc, you tell yet how long ago this guy died?
About 2 o'clock this morning, Captain. The bullet that killed him was fired at close range, still lodged in the skull. My guess is that it's a .32.
The slug couldn't have been given to a more deserving guy.
What do you mean, Casey?
You know who this stiff is, don't you?
He has no identification on
You
it.
should know him, though. He almost became middleweight champ a few years ago, fighting under the name of Tug Loftus.
Say, you're right. I make him now.
Yeah. A moment ago, Annie, this lug told us to go peddle our paper.
Oh, nuts. Hey, this Tug Loftus was a troublemaker, wasn't he? Always getting into jams.
Yeah, he was an all-around heel. Tug Loftus' idea of a good time was to pick barroom fights with guys who didn't recognize him, then beat him to a pulp.
Which means he had quite a few enemies.
Yeah, that makes things just dandy.
Well, that implies you haven't found any leads to the killer, Captain.
Not a one, Miss Williams, except this book of matches.
Book of matches?
That was in his pocket.
It's got an ad on it for the Briarwold Casino.
And only 2 matches torn out of it, which may indicate that the Briarwold was the last place he was in before he came here and was bumped off.
Where's the Briarwold?
Well, that's a roadhouse out on Old Turnpike, run by Jake Salwin and his cousin Lou, Annie.
Who do quite a little bookmaking in connection with their cafe business.
Yeah, that's right. You know, we met the Salwins last year, Ann, remember? We got a report that the safe in their joint had been robbed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they denied the report. To the cops as well as to us. They said no one had touched their safe.
Yeah, Lieutenant Schwartz of the robbery squad told me about that. He figured the 2 Salwins denied the robbery because the safe had contained a lot of horse betters, dough they couldn't explain as cafe income.
Yeah, their Briarwold Casino is just the kind of a joint Tug Loftus would patronize. Say, when are you going out there, Logan?
Right away. There's nothing more I can do here.
You're going to have company, pal. Annie, let's go.
Hey, Walter, fix Mr. Snodgrass one of his specials. You know, with the little piece of pineapple in it? Oh, dear, that guy. Tell me, Casey, what did you and Miss Williams find out at the Briarwold Casino?
Nothing, Ethelbert, nothing. Except that Tug Loftus was in the joint only a few hours before he was killed.
Well, nobody there remembers him leaving with anyone who might have taken him to Lakeside. Hayek Park and shot him.
Now, I wouldn't believe anything Big Jake Selwyn said, or his cousin Lou.
And neither would Captain Logan. He questioned everyone who works in the place.
They all agreed Loftus left there alone?
Yeah, they just don't remember.
Well, had he picked any fights there before he left?
Nobody had on other nights.
Since that matchbook was the only clue, it don't sound like this murder will be easy to solve. How about that bullet that killed the guy?
Doesn't match up with any gun that ballistics has on record.
Well, we better get back to the office, Casey.
Yeah, city desk will be paging us if we don't. Uh-oh, that may be them now.
I'll see. Blue Note Cafe, Ethelbert, the bartender speaking. Yeah, Casey's right here. Just a minute.
I knew it.
It ain't your city desk, Casey. It's one of the photographers in your department. That fella Shapiro?
Oh, yeah, give it.
Shapiro.
Hello, Shap. Who? No, I don't know any Mrs. McCluskey. What? Oh, yeah, I remember her now. A couple of years ago. She was a witness in a hit-and-run case. Yeah? All right, tell her to wait. I'll be right over. Thank you, Shep. So long.
What is it, Casey?
Old gal I met on a hit-and-run killing says she has something hot for me.
Oh, you mean a tip?
Yeah, probably about something unimportant, but come on, Annie, we'll see.
I've got evidence of a murder, Mr. Casey.
A murder, Mrs. McCluskey?
In black and white.
Oh, well, that sounds very interesting. Tell me what you got.
First, Mr. Casey, what do I get?
What, you mean,
Since I described that hit-and-run automobile to the cops a couple of years ago and got nothing for it, I found out that newspapers pay for what they call scoops. You was nice to me, Mr. Casey, so I'm giving you and your paper first chance. How much?
Well, it all depends on what you have to offer.
You interested in catching the murderer of that prize fighter, Tug Loftus?
Tug Loftus?
I got a picture of the killing, miss.
What a picture.
Casey.
Is it worth $100 to your paper?
Well, I'll say, well, City Desk sets the price for exclusive tips, Mrs. McCluskey, but I'll guarantee you $100 if you've got what you say you have.
I've got it.
Well, let's see it.
I get the 100?
You get the 100 if.
All right. This here envelope was in my mailbox this morning, so naturally I opened it. Later, when I put my glasses on, I seen the address is mine, but the name ain't mine.
It's addressed to Mr. Max Treaty. 121 3rd Street.
121 3rd Street is where I live, but no Max Treaty lives there.
Well, go on.
Well, inside the envelope was just this here camera snapshot. Nothing else.
Annie, look.
That's Loftus, as we saw him lying in that park.
I knew that from the picture you had of him in yesterday's paper.
Standing over Loftus is a guy with a gun in his hand.
And he's just killed the fighter.
That's the way it looks. It's a good profile shot of the killer, Ann. The face is clear even in this small print, and when I blow it up...
It's worth 100, ain't it, Mr.
It's
Casey?
worth 100, Mrs. McCluskey.
I said I had evidence in black and white.
Now, who do you suppose took that picture, Casey? And why?
That's something we'll think about later. But I'll bet it was taken with an infrared flash bulb.
A black light?
Yep. The guy with the gun didn't see any flash. He didn't know that somebody was taking this picture. We've got to find this skinny, long-nosed guy with a gun, you know it?
Oh, the cops will do that when we show them this.
Sure, yes, and probably crab our exclusive. Before the cops learn anything about this, Annie, we're going to try to find him.
How?
Well, the picture, the guy this picture was addressed to ought to give us a hint.
Well, Casey, he may be the killer. This picture may have been addressed to him as the first step in a blackmail scheme.
Now, Annie, you're cooking on all burners. Let me see that envelope again.
Yeah?
Addressed to Max Treaty, 121 3rd Street.
And the sender had the wrong address because Mrs. McCluskey lives there.
And I live alone.
Well, I'll look in the phone book.
Yeah, do
Maybe
that.
Treaty's listed.
You said you got this in the morning mail, Mrs. McCluskey?
That's right. I wanted time to do some thinking.
Yeah, about whether to put the B on us for that $100. Huh?
You said yourself it's worth it.
Oh, I'm not reneging on that.
I've heard of $1,000 rewards being offered for murderers, but in order to get it, you had to capture them yourself.
Yeah, that makes a difference.
So I figured...
Hey, Casey, Max Treaty is in the phone book.
Now, let me see it.
Yeah, he lives on 3rd Street, all right, see? But his address is given here as 727.
Yeah, it looks like 121 on this envelope because this guy writes sevens that look like ones. That's something else for us to think about later.
Well, let's call on Max Treaty.
Right now, Ann.
When do I get my 100?
There'll be a check in the mail for you tomorrow morning, Mrs. McCluskey, for 200.
200?
Yep, and thanks, and so long.
$200? Drat it, I bet I should have asked for more.
street, he lives in a pretty good-looking apartment house, Casey.
Yeah, must be in the dough. Let's go in, Annie. Glass doors and all.
It's a funny neighborhood. Only a few blocks away where Mrs. McCluskey lives. There's nothing but tenements and little old one-family houses.
So there's the
While here-
elevator. The operator may be able to give us a line on this guy.
Originally broadcast 9:30 p.m. on March 18th, 1948, and that was a Thursday. Casey, crime photographer here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on this Saturday. The news from 75 years ago today follows these messages from your favorite station. Just when you thought it couldn't get any better, Mike Lindell and MyPillow launching the MyPillow 2.0. Now, when Mike invented MyPillow, it had everything you could want in a pillow. Now, nearly 20 years later, he's discovered a new technology that makes MyPillow even better. Of course, the patented adjustable fill of the original MyPillow, but now with brand new fabric with a temperature-regulating thread, it's the softest, smoothest, and coolest pillow you'll ever own. Say goodbye to tossing and turning and flipping your pillow over in the middle of the night. And more great news on the MyPillow 2.0 buy one, get one free offer with my promo code Wyatt. MyPillow 2.0 is 100% made in the USA, 10-year warranty, 60-day money-back guarantee. Go to MyPillow.com, click on the radio podcast square to receive the MyPillow 2.0 buy one, get one free offer. Use my promo code Wyatt or call 1-800-928-4715. Thanks for tuning into Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on this Saturday. And you're listening to an episode of Casey Crime Photographer as it was originally broadcast at 9:30 p.m. Thursday, March 18th, 1948. In the newspapers of that Thursday 75 years ago, these were some of the headlines. Senate Republican leaders yesterday ordered full speed ahead on their $4.8 billion tax cut plan after hearing President Truman ask for a temporary draft and universal training. His request removed any fears they had that the president would propose a spending program so large as to make a tax cut difficult or impossible. At Lake Success, the big powers agreed tentatively last night to remove immediate steps by the UN Security Council to end the warfare in Palestine. The U.S., Russia, France, and China also decided to ask for a council declaration that it would not allow any threat to peace to exist in the Holy Land. The only difference on one secondary point kept the four conferees from final agreement on the text of a compromise report to be submitted to the council when it again takes up the Palestine dilemma tomorrow morning. President Truman's Stop Russia program appears designed to confront the Moscow with the dangers of war if the communist power tries to expand into Western Europe. John M. Hightower, writing for the Associated Press, quotes the administration is reported to hope that strong U.S. action will now cause Soviet Premier Stalin to call a halt to communist aggression and to strengthen resistance in Western Europe. President Truman last night announced bluntly he did not want the political support of Henry Wallace and his communists, those his words. Speaking at the annual banquet of the Friendly Sons of St. Patrick, Truman made a last-minute change in a talk on American preparedness and foreign policy to inject an unexpected political note. He departed from his prepared text to say, and quoting, "I do not want and I will not accept the political support of Henry Wallace and his communists. If joining them or permitting them to join me is the price of victory, I recommend defeat." The president proclaimed this country the principal protector of the free world yesterday and called for full military strength backed by a new draft law to give force to his declaration. Truman said the very existence of democracy is threatened by communist expansion. The time has come, he said, to join our strength with the strength of other free men the world over to stop it. Meanwhile, responding to the president's pleas for speed, the House Foreign Affairs Committee gave sudden approval yesterday to his $5.3 billion European aid program, the same amount approved by the Senate for 12 months of aid to non-communist nations. It gave an immediate lift to hopes of the leaders that the House can clear the bill in 2 weeks. And Union and Company officials last night put President Truman on notice that only a federal court injunction can halt a walkout at the huge Oak Ridge, Tennessee atomic laboratories set for midnight tomorrow. Informed sources said representatives of the AFL Atomic Trades and Labor Council and the Carbide and Carmen Chemical Corporation abruptly recessed their negotiations late yesterday afternoon without reaching agreement on new contract terms. Meanwhile, James Petrillo and the radio networks reported last night to have reached agreement on a new contract there. A source close to the negotiations between the networks and Petrillo, the president of the American Federation of Musicians, said terms of the agreement would probably be announced today. Though some of the day's top news stories, as reported in the newspapers of Thursday, March 18th, 1948, on your radio, Casey Crime Photographer, which continues now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox.
We're looking for Mr. Max Treaty.
He's top floor, apartment 12F.
Take us up, will you, please?
Okay. But he may not be in. I haven't seen him this evening.
We'll take a chance. We're not sure this Mr. Treaty is the one we're looking for. Can you tell us what business he's in?
I don't think he's in any business, mister.
Oh, you mean he has an income and doesn't have to work?
I really don't know. I'm not the kind who pries into the personal affairs of tenants.
Oh, that's right. You don't look that type. How long has he lived here?
Oh, about 8 or 9 months. Took a sublease on a furnished apartment. Does that tell you if he's the man you're looking for?
Well, not quite, no. Was he a skinny guy, about 35 with a long nose?
That's Mr. Treaty.
Yeah, we've come to the right place, then.
Oh, here's the top floor. Apartment 12F is the last door to your right.
Thank you, pal.
You're quite welcome.
Casey, the man in that picture is skinny and has a long nose.
Yeah, and the elevator guy says that description fits Treaty. All right, here's 12F. I'll buzz the bell.
If he's the killer, he'll be dangerous. What do we do?
You'll have no reason to think we're on to him, Annie.
Yeah. Nobody answers the bell. The elevator man said he hadn't seen him this evening.
I don't hear any sound from inside. I'll try the bell again.
Casey!
Huh?
Look there, under the door.
Holy!
Yeah, it looks like blood.
It is blood. Seeped through from the other side. I'm getting into that apartment.
Okay. Door's locked.
This little strip of celluloid we burglars always carry.
You can slip it?
I think so. This is only a spring latch. There. All right, come in.
Casey, there on the floor.
I know, I see it. Let me close this door. We don't want any visitors here. Now.
It's the man in that picture, Treaty.
He's been beaten on the head.
He's
been dead for a couple of hours, I think. Body's almost cold, and this pool of blood is dry around the edges.
His clothes have been searched. And the apartment.
I'll say. He and this joint have been practically ripped apart.
Oh, isn't this just swell? We came here hoping to crack one murder, and now we've got another.
Yes. There's no black and white evidence to show who pulled this one.
From 75 years ago, March 18th, 1948, Casey Crime Photographer on the Saturday Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. And we're going to go back 88 years for a crime drama on Sunday's Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, an episode of Calling All Cars, March 19th, 1935, a celebrity involved, the Mae West jewelry robbery. The story of the real robbery of Miss West jewelries and $3,000 in cash. Martha Wentworth impersonates Mae West, and the real program broadcast on the day one of the robbers was caught. It'll be on Sunday's Classic Radio Theater, but now we go back to Murder in Black and White, an episode of Casey Crime Photographer from 75 years ago, March 18th, 1945.
We've got to call the cops, Casey.
Take it easy, take it easy. We'll have a look around first.
You've already looked around. The murderer isn't hiding here waiting.
No, he probably made his getaway right after he socked this guy for the last time. Friend Treaty took quite a beating before he was finally knocked off.
How can you tell that?
Look at the black and blue marks on him. Guy's got to be alive to bruise. Marks around his wrists and ankles. Must have been tied up quite a while.
I see.
Apparently, the killer tried to make him tell where something was hidden. And he wouldn't or couldn't tell, so the killer searched for him.
And how he searched. All the stuffing's been pulled out of the chairs, and the mattress has been ripped open.
Treaty's clothes got it going over, too. Linings cut, the soles of his shoes all split. Hey, this must be the stuff that was taken out of him and examined. Look at that wallet, fountain pen, Cigarette case,
Now,
revolver.
don't touch anything, Casey, until
Who's
the cops...
touching anything? I'm only looking. It's a revolver.
It looks like the gun in the picture.
Yeah, but this is a 38, Ann. Loftus was shot with a 32.
Well, then, Treaty must have used another gun
Must
to
have.
kill him.
Probably threw it in the lake afterward. Say,
What have you picked up?
look at that. Book of matches from the Briarwold Casino.
Well, like the one found on Tug Loftus.
Yes. This was half hidden under the sofa.
Well, that connects the two murders.
Maybe.
Well, Casey, we've got to get the cops here.
Not just cops. We're getting Logan. I want him to get first break on what we know about that picture. And the phone's in that bedroom. You go get him while I go down to the car and get my camera. I want to take some pictures of my own.
Well, did you see that camera in the bookcase? Maybe you can save yourself a trip.
No, there's no film in it. I looked. It was opened and searched like everything else. Late Mr. Treaty went in for photography, apparently. He had his kitchenette fixed up like a darkroom.
Yeah?
A lot of equipment there. The searcher wrecked all of it. All right, call Logan while I go for my camera.
Oh, wait a minute, Casey.
What?
Didn't he tell us he wouldn't be at headquarters till midnight?
Yeah, we'll call him at his home.
He has a new phone number. What is it?
I'll write it down for you. That's where's my pencil.
Take mine.
Thanks. Oh, well, I'll be.
Oh, you've broken the point.
I know it. Well, I use this fountain pen of Treaty.
You shouldn't touch anything.
This pen isn't going to tell the cops who killed him, Annie. Nice point. Write's easy. All right, here's Logan's number. Call him as soon as you finish with City Desk.
Yeah, I will. Casey, don't stick that pen in your pocket.
Oh, I'll need it to make out my film sheets. Don't worry, I'm not stealing from dead guys. The pen will be put back later.
If you think of it, I'll go phone.
Ann.
Yeah?
Give Logan the lowdown about that picture and about everything else. Except, don't tell him about the matchbook we just found.
Why not?
Well, cops have no appreciation of the newspaper racket. We'll lose our exclusive. We'll go out to the Briarwold and follow it up by ourselves.
My cousin Jake isn't here, Casey.
Huh? Expect him later, Lou?
He's sure to be in sometime tonight.
All right, we'll stick around. Maybe you can give us some information.
Information?
About the Tug Loftus thing.
Jake and I have already told the cops and you newspaper people all we know about that.
Hey, the last time I was in this office, Lou, you and Big Jake were telling the cops that safe there hadn't been robbed.
It hadn't been. We still don't know where they got that crazy report.
Anyway, the tipster told the cops that he heard Big Jake squawking about the loss of $50,000.
Their tipster lied. That safe's never had more than a couple of thousand in it. And that's a big take from a cafe business like ours.
Yeah, from your cafe business. Lou, what would you know about a guy named Treaty?
Treaty?
Mm-hmm. Max Treaty.
Why do you ask?
We understand he's been a customer of yours.
He was once a bartender here.
A bartender?
When did he tend bar here?
Till about a year ago. Jake fired him.
Jake, huh?
After I'd caught Treaty holding out in the cash register.
Huh? Jake only fired him for that?
You know Jake. The guy left here minus a few teeth. Why are you curious about Treaty?
He was murdered this afternoon.
Murdered?
Uh-huh. Was Treaty here the night Loftus was killed, Lou?
I think he was.
Had he ever had any run-ins with Tug Loftus?
Yes, about a month ago, Loftus slapped him around in the bar, and Treaty said he'd get even. That was just talk, of course. He knew he didn't stand a chance against that tough pug.
We have reason to believe he made his chance. That he killed Loftus.
You have?
Yeah. We got a photograph showing him doing it.
Casey.
It's all right. Can't be any secret about it, Annie. It'll be on page 1 of this morning's edition. That'll hit the streets in a couple of hours.
Where did you get such a photograph, Casey?
Oh, we just got it. You and Jake both use this desk, Lou?
Yes.
Somebody scribbled some figures on a scratch pad here. Is that your work?
Why do you ask?
Oh, just curiosity. Can't make out whether some of the figures are meant to be 1s or 7s.
Jake makes his 1s that way.
Jake, huh? How about his 7s?
There are no 7s among those figures.
Show me how Jake writes his 7s, Lou.
Why?
Your nervousness about these figures makes me want to know. Here, take this pen and write.
What? That pen?
Yes, you recognize it. It's Treaty's.
And this is a gun.
I see it's a gun, Lou. All right. A .32 snub-nosed revolver.
I'm not so sure how much you two know, but I think it's too much. You've reminded me of a bet I missed. What did you find in that pen, Casey?
I didn't look for anything in the pen. Well, maybe I missed a bet.
Look now. Pull the cap off and see if there's anything inside.
Okay. Hey, there is some.
What?
I'd say it's a rolled-up film, a negative.
Take it out.
Okay. It's a rolled-up negative, all right.
Never mind looking at it. Give it to me.
Well, I want to look
Give
at
it to me.
All right. You're the boss. Here. Thanks.
Thanks to you for reaching for it.
I'll take that gat of yours, Lou.
No, let it go or I'll break your arm.
Let go. Thanks for the gun.
Oh, Casey.
All right, now I'll give the orders around here. Put your hands up, Lou. Keep them up and sit down.
All right.
What's that negative, Casey?
It's a nice, clear shot of Lou Solwyn here, taking dough out of an open safe. The safe in this office. That's safe. Right, Lou?
You're doing the talking.
You took the dough, Lou, on the date it was reported stolen. Somebody caught you doing it with a camera. From that window where a slat in the Venetian blind is missing. And that someone was Max Treaty.
And Treaty moved into that expensive apartment soon after the robbery and didn't work anymore.
Because Lou here was paying him to keep this evidence undercover. Big Jake is the boss of your bookmaking racket, Lou. He owns it, and you're just a hired man. The dough you stole was Jake's, and if he'd found out that you
Okay,
took it...
Casey, you figured it. Get me out of here now. Take me to the cops where I'll be safe. Jake finds out, he'll kill me.
Yes, like you killed Treaty after your counter-blackmail scheme had backfired.
Counter-blackmail scheme?
Don't you get it, Annie?
No.
I get it. Jake!
Casey.
Drop that gun, Casey, or I'll blow you to pieces before you can turn around. Drop it!
Guy's at a slight disadvantage when his back is turned, Jake. Okay.
Thanks.
You're outside the door?
Yeah, listen.
Jake, I swear.
I said I'd been listening, Lou.
I didn't say anything. Casey did the talking.
And he doped things out swell. You took that 50 grand, you dirty louse. 50 grand of my dough.
No, Jake, no.
I'm gonna pay you off, Lou.
Don't shoot!
He shot him.
Sorry I had to do it, miss.
You've done a crazy thing, Jake. You go to the chair for this.
I don't think so, Casey. The cops get here, they're gonna find you and this lady dead, too. Sorry, sister, but that's the way it's gotta be. You and Casey will be shot with Lou's gun. My gun will be found beside Casey. The cops have figured that Lou tried to make a getaway, that you shot it out. I'll call the cops myself, start them on that theory.
It won't work, Jake.
I'm betting it will. Betting's my business. Just pick up Lou's
I
gun.
got it first, Jake!
Lou wasn't dead. He shot him.
Lou! He's passed out again. All right, I'll get their guns before either one pulls a second recovery. Now, Ann, pick up that phone and call the cops while I watch these guys.
Right, Casey. So much I don't understand. Where does Treaty fit in now?
Treaty didn't kill Loftus.
Well, that picture proves he did. The evidence is there in black and white.
Black and white aren't true colors, kid.
Not true?
No. And pictures themselves can lie.
I don't get it. Hello? Headquarters, connect me with homicide. Wait, please. Casey, tell me, what do you mean?
Well, I'll explain the whole works, Annie, after I take some pictures of Jake and Lou that'll be really on the level.
There's a lot of things I don't understand, Casey.
Well, all right, pal. We'll take it from the beginning now.
Lou Solwyn did considerable talking before he died, Ethelbert.
He's dead, huh?
Yeah, both him and Jake.
Tell me.
Well, while Treaty was bartender at the Briar Wall, he found out that Lou Solwyn was stealing from Jake, his boss.
And then Lou caught Treaty cheating the cash register and told Jake.
Who'd knocked out some of Treaty's bridge work, which made Treaty very sore at Lou for snitching.
So he laid for him with a camera and got that picture of Lou robbing the safe for a really big haul.
And after that, Treaty sat pretty at Lou's expense. Lou got pretty desperate under the pressure, and finally he hit on a bright idea. He'd get Treaty in a worse spot than he was by killing Loftus.
Lou killed Loftus?
Right, he did. In Lakeside Park, where Treaty was to meet Lou and collect more blackmail. Lou shot the pug and then hit himself with a camera and waited. When Treaty suddenly saw Loftus where he expected to meet Lou, his first instinct would be to draw that gun. And Lou got a very interesting picture of him standing over the body with the gun.
And Treaty didn't know about the picture, of course. It was taken by a black light, an infrared bulb. When he realized Loftus was dead, he lost no time in getting away fast.
Sure, Lou developed his picture and sent a print to Treaty, but his sloppy way of writing sevens got the print into Mrs. McCluskey's hands.
Why'd he send a picture to Treaty?
Well, to shake him up, to make him sweat.
Oh.
Then Lou went to his apartment, expecting to find him in a big dither, ready to trade the original negative of that safe robbery for the negative that made Treaty seem a murderer.
But Treaty hadn't received the print, and Lou realized it might fall into the hands of the cops. Well, if they arrested Treaty for a murder he hadn't committed, he'd tell everything he knew about Lou.
Lou's big scheme had backfired. He had to get the negative of the robbery picture Treaty held over him. Treaty wouldn't tell him where he'd hidden it, even under the beating that Lou gave him. Well, you know the rest.
And he was a bartender, like me. Miss Williams, I I'm going to report that guy to our local and have him thrown right out of our union.
He's dead, Ethelbert.
Yes, sir.
Dead, pal.
Oh. It's like my sister Edna says, Casey. Quote, if you get your picture took, you're liable to get framed. Yeah, unquote.
Crime Photographer, starring Staats Cotsworth as Casey, is written by Alonzo Dean Cole. It is brought to you each Thursday by the Anchor Hocking Glass Corporation, makers of Fire King Oven Glass, Anchor Glass Containers, Anchor Caps and Closures. All products of Anchor Hocking, the most famous name in glass. Photographer is directed by John Dietz and is based on the fictional character of Flash Gun Casey, created by George Harmon Cox. Original music is by Archie Blyer, and the program features Miss Jan Miner as Anne and John Gibson as Ethelbert. Herman Chittison is the Blue Note pianist.
March 18th, 1948, Casey, Crime Photographer, here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Thank you for making us a part of your day. Thank this station, support their advertisers. Their kindness and courtesy allow us to be with you each and every time we roll around here on your favorite station. Miss a day, you don't have to miss a single show. All of our shows are available on demand at classicradio.stream. Classicradio.stream. Stream our shows. Learn about building a classic radio collection of your own. You can contact me, find our social media links, and if you are so inclined, you can buy me a coffee. That Buy Me a Coffee money helps us acquire additional classic radio collections and keep our distribution channels up and running. That's classicradio.stream. Thanks for tuning in. Tell all your friends the greatest radio shows of all time are right here at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite radio station.